Hey, welcome to X-Oriente, the new voice of brotherhood. I am your host, Eric Diamond.
I'm your other host, Jason Van Dyke.
Actually, you know what?
Tell me.
1 second. Just bring my audio software back. There we go. So please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste.
Jesus. There we go.
I lay traps for troubadours who get killed before they reach Bombay. We wanted to talk today, I think, a little bit about the devil. Basically, when you talked about like anti-Masonry, references to the devil and accusations of the, us being aligned with the devil, images of something called Baphomet, or as I like to refer to him as Baphomet. There seems to be a lot of connections, certainly unintentional, but they keep coming back to haunt us. And I thought it would be, since we're, in the business of finding light, I thought it would be kind of interesting to do a show or two on kind of understanding like the context of the devil and why it's, like why is it important or not important in Masonry?
Right.
But
Sure.
it just is here, right?
Right. It's super important. I mean, what is the old Taoist saying? You cannot have light without dark.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it's really important that we understand that duality, that what is the darkness is in order to understand the light. And so, for me, this is going to be really interesting too, because this is just, this really gets to the heart of a lot of religion.
Mm-hmm.
Because religion's place is to tell you, here's what's good, here's what's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And those two things, we're religion. We're here to tell you which one's which.
Mm-hmm.
And how they do that is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And every religion does it. So this is going to be, I think this is just going to be a really fun conversation. And we don't talk about the bad very much, right? We tend to be pretty positive people.
Yeah. I mean, I would certainly say so.
Sure. I mean, at least on this podcast. But I'm just saying that, we kind of steer away from that kind of stuff, and it's really important to understand, I think.
Well, and I think the reason that this is an interesting subject for me is that, when you say the devil,
Yeah, right.
There's this assumption that everybody's talking about the same thing, and they're
Right.
not.
Right.
I mean, that's
Absolutely.
the thing that I've, in kind of researching for this show, that I've realized that like when you talk about like Satan or the devil or Lucifer or Beelzulbub or Samael or, take your pick your poison. It's all different, and it all gets lumped together in the same thing.
Sure.
And so,
Sure.
we like to say, oh, well, that's just, that's this guy
Right.
with a different name.
And I think that we're going to get there, but I think that we will get there. But the short answer to a lot of that is it's really a medieval concept of the devil that we still believe in today. That's the pop culture devil that we use. It's the antagonist, the invisible antagonist in The Exorcist, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that scares everybody. And that's a medieval concept, what's presented there.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of went away for a while. And then movies like The Exorcist really bring it back to the fore in like the 70s, right? And then I think that it's really interesting because now you have this sort of rise of fundamentalism in Christianity. And with that, you get these really old medieval concepts that are coming back, and one of them is that concept of Satan and what Satan is.
Right.
But we'll get to that. But I mean, this is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I know.
I love this stuff. I love this stuff. This is going to be such a fun conversation. So, okay. So before we came on the air, for you guys, Eric and I talked about kind of how we wanted to do this. Eric did all this research, which he said, I'm going to write down some notes, and you go ahead and fill in the blanks. And because Eric is Eric, I went through his 5 pages of notes and went, so there are no blanks. You're insane. So I think
I'm possessed.
Right, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So anyhow, some power compelled you. I'm not sure which, but anyhow, so I think what we're going to do is I think that the way to have this conversation the best, is Eric did all this research and it's all really, really good, is that I think we're going to try and sort of do a little bit of a conversation, kind of like we did the conversation. We read the philosophical conversation. I'm gonna play straight guy and ask some questions. We'll probably break that a whole lot, but I think that way it sort of guides the conversation a little bit. So that's what we're going after, kids.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We'll see how it works, and I don't know if it doesn't work, we'll just break and do whatever we want anyway. So,
well, I think it'll work.
Seems to work for us so far.
Yeah, no, I think it'll work. I think it'll be fine.
Okay, all right. Okay,
so I think the way to start on this, first before we get into sort of the Q&A, is just I think we have to have some sort of grounding, because like if you were to define the devil.
Okay. Oh, I see where you're going with this. Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Uh-huh.
So like, kind of in our I should get a patent for Pardes, but
probably
like Pardes in a podcast, but no.
Sure.
All right. Let me just, I want to pull up.
I swear to God, are we starting this with Webster defines
No,
evil
no,
as...
no, I'm not going to, no.
Because I would get on a plane and I would choke you.
That would just be ridiculous.
And then when the cops came, why did you choke this man? Well,
right.
2 reasons.
Yeah, Webster and
Satan.
Okay, hang on 1 second. Let me just. I just want to go. I'm pulling up the Wikipedia page on devil.
Oh, all right. Ooh, yeah.
Okay.
Good job.
Just so that we get like a kind of a ground, ground setting definition. A devil is the personification of evil, as it is conceived in many and various cultures and religious traditions. Mm-hmm. I think it's a great definition. Super concise.
It is. Yeah.
Right, but so it's the personification of evil.
Mm-hmm.
So I think before we get into sort of what this personification of evil is, we have to sort of understand what evil is, like have some kind of working definition of it. Okay. And I can tell you what the working definition of evil is from a Jewish perspective, from a Kabbalistic perspective.
Okay.
I would rely then on you to kind of fill in the blanks for me for the sort of the Catholic upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
But
it'll be the same as yours plus Jesus.
It'll be the same as mine. Oh, plus Jesus.
Plus Jesus.
Plus
That's
Jesus.
Right.
So in Judaism, like there's two inclinations, right? There's
mm-hmm.
the good inclination, mm-hmm. and there's the evil inclination. The good inclination is called Yetzer HaTov, Tov
mm-hmm.
meaning good,
and
the bad is Yetzer HaRa, right?
Okay.
Meaning bad. Ra means bad. And so
and the Yetzer is the sort of the pull. Is it a what
the
is
inclination,
Yetzer?
the force.
It's a all right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right.
And so the idea is that Yetzer HaTov, what Yetzer HaTov is the desire to unite, to
mm-hmm.
come together, to be close,
mm-hmm.
to kind of unite with God, to kind of come to the divine and to
sure.
become one with the divine.
Okay.
And what Yetzer HaRa is the inclination to kind of pull away, to be distinct, to mm-hmm. discriminate. And so what mm-hmm. happens is that when you have somebody who's evil, right, mm-hmm. they're turning away from God. They're kind of being in their own world. They're doing whatever the hell they want to do.
Right.
Right. Irrespective of the consequences or the morality of it, and in doing those things, they grow even further away from God. Now, in Kabbalah, both things are important, because if you don't have Yetzer Hara, any Yetzer Hara, if you're all good, right, you lose your identity. You just become one, like the idea of individual rights and stuff like that.
That's interesting. Okay.
Is kind of a function of Yetzer Hara.
Right. Sure.
Right. And so that's when you have things like, when you look at the tree of life in the Kabbalah, right, you have things like, Chesed, which is loving kindness, which is sort of the Yetzer HaTov. And then you have Gevura, which is judgment, which is sort of the Yetzer Hara. I mean, judgment is really about going,
sure.
yes, no.
Right. It's differentiating. Absolutely.
Differentiating.
Okay. Yeah.
So, so that's kind of how, so on one side, you have like the Yetzer HaTov type things, Chochmah is a Yetzer HaTov, and Bina is a Yetzer Hara, right? Bina is know-how. It's knowing how to do this from that, right? So that's kind of how evil is portrayed, right? And so because of that, there's always a balance, right? You can't be all one or the other. Like all one of anything is not good.
Right. Are you striving for a balance, or are you striving to be just a little bit more on the good side?
Well,
how does that work out?
Yeah. So I think if you what an observant Jew would say is that if you are living by the commandments, by the spirit of the commandments, you will be in alignment. Like that will naturally align to where, because basically God comes to the children of Israel and says, here's what I want for you. I'm going to give you these commandments. And if you live by them, everything's going to be great. And that's the covenant. That's the corn, wine, and oil.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Right. But my question is that in balance, right? If you are living by the commandments, right, and you're holding up your end of the bargain as it is that in balance?
Yeah.
Or is that slightly on the positive side?
No, it's in balance.
It's in balance. Okay.
Right. Because you're putting a value. So this is why this is so hard,
sure.
right? You're putting a value judgment.
You see where I'm getting at, right?
Yeah. You're putting a value judgment on Yetzer HaTov and Yetzer Hara. And in other words, you're saying it's better to be good than be bad, right? Well, yes and no, right?
Right.
Yetzer HaTov, and what's interesting about Yetzer HaTov and Yetzer Hara is that this is the doctrine that explains why God can be so cruel sometimes.
Oh, right? This is great. That's terrific.
How could you let my 4-year-old daughter get cancer, terminal cancer? Like, how could God allow something like that to happen? Right. Well, God works in mysterious ways, but this is how he does it, right? The Yetzer Hara portion of God, that's the part that smites people. That's the part that, closes the Red Sea on Pharaoh, right?
Yeah. Okay.
That's the Yetzer Hara part of God, and the Yetzer HaTov part of God is yes, I've exiled you to Babylon, but I'm going to liberate you. I'm going to send a Messiah to So that's the that's how that kind of thing. Like why do bad things happen to good people? That's why, because there's those two inclinations, and they have to be in balance.
But I think it's also interesting is because it's funny that another thing is that it by living the commandments, right? As a good observant Jew, living by the commandments themselves, right? Living by the laws. Ultimately, that is trying to be as close to God as you can, right? By doing what He wants. But what's interesting is that by doing that, you define yourself as a human and completely apart from Him, because you have to strive to get that, right?
Yeah. And you have to do that. Otherwise, there's no free will, right?
There you go. There it is.
If, in other words, like if let's say that you were a king, you're the king of Israel, right? And you say, you know what, I'm gonna do God a solid, and I'm gonna make sure everybody obeys every single commandment without fail. Right. Right. That kind of takes away,
exactly.
It's
kind
terrible. It's kind of
hurrah.
Right. Exactly. The problem is that if there was a way, if God could make us sort of perfect and not where we didn't have free will, right? Why would you need commandments, right? We'd be on autopilot. We'd be like, flatworm or something. We wouldn't have any actual
Sure.
will.
Right.
And so that's what separates us.
Yeah. All right. No, that's perfect. That's just where I was getting at, is that like that it's so subtle, that idea.
Yeah.
That it's
That's why it's in Kabbalah, because most people just
and it's
can't.
gorgeous.
Like most people just can't, like.
Okay.
You can't tell this to a bar
No.
mitzvah boy and have him be like, without going,
Right, that's
without
a
his
good
head
point.
exploding. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good. I think from a Christian perspective, like that whole idea of good and evil. I mean, for me as a good Catholic boy, the priests just tell you, there's no interpretation necessary. They're going to be there. They'll probably read some stories at you, but they're there to tell you what it means.
So good is just obeying God, and bad
Absolutely.
is not obeying God.
That's correct. Or anything that they deem breaking whatever rules they've made up that say that's what God wanted. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's it. And it is especially in Roman Catholicism, it is, here's the black, here's the white. That's it. We're all done now. Priest told you to do it. Shut up, do it. Because that was God's will. That's it. And if you go against that, well, and we'll get into that later, but that's evil, and evil is a definite thing. And if you do a wrong, it's almost like the concept of because everything is about the judgment, right? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Is that a Judeo thing, right? Where it's all about the judgment.
Yeah.
You die, you're going straight to God, and He's going to judge you.
Yeah, they call it. Well, all right. It's sort of. It depends on who you ask. So there's different doctrines of it. There's this thing called Olam Haba, which means the world to come. Now, some people believe that, like, there's this day that God's going to sort of end creation, and that's like Judgment Day,
right?
And the world to come, right? And but Jews don't have this idea of hell, right? There's no such thing as hell,
right?
So what happens is when your soul, we actually have 5 souls. 2 of them die with the body. One of them kind of gets reassigned, and the other 2 exist completely in heaven. And what happens is that if you lead a particularly bad life, you're then kind of reincarnated with a specific mission to correct that. It's called a tikkun. Yeah. And so the idea would be like you would keep reincarnating until you kind of got it all right.
Yeah.
And then you
sort of like Jacob Marley.
Yeah. Or Groundhog Day. Just
right.
in a different
same story. Yeah, same story. Right. Okay, that's interesting. All right. So, for good Catholic Christians, it's much more simple than that. It's just you die, your soul goes to heaven initially, or maybe purgatory, which is a Catholic thing, where you kind of wait it out. Not quite sure what's going to happen. You're going to be in literally limbo, is what it's called. And you're going to be judged, and you get judged good, stay in heaven, bad, evil. And that judgment is a numbers game. That was what it was always taught to me. It was every little bad thing you do will be weighed against the good things that you do. Always do better. Always do more good things than you ever will do evil things. Stay away from the evil things. Even just a few will outweigh the good that you've done in your life. And it was very much that Egyptian thoth weighing your heart against a feather kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Right. And, if your heart was heavier than the feather, the alligator comes out, eats you, and that's it. Except for us, you go straight to hell. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. That's it.
So what? So I know that you guys have purgatory.
We do.
Right. So what's the tipping point? Like what point do they go, purgatory? No, you're going downstairs,
Okay. So that's a great question. I've never had a lot of clarity on it.
Do we need a priest?
Yes. Here's the thing, right? Is that the purgatory. So I grew up in an era where Catholicism was straight up Vatican II. Like we were into having we had the folk singers in church. The church was like a nice big Gothic, I mean, unbelievable church, and it was all designed to have mass said, with the priest's back to you, all in Latin that no one could understand. They didn't care. But when I was growing up, it was directly the opposite of that. It was all right, let's all be a community now. And, and it was kind of happy-go-lucky. And so that whole, because they used to be dependent on the priest. Like, there were a couple priests that I had that in my grade school who were, you're going to go to hell. Satan will come up here. He will drag you down. And, just would scare the living bejesus out of you. But even they didn't really get into the whole limbo thing. Because limbo is I don't know. It's
is limbo a real doctrine? Because I the only place I ever saw reference to it was in Dante.
They don't talk about it a lot. But it's a real deal. They don't talk a lot about it because I think that it shifts. It probably shifts.
Well, my guess is
pretty early to us, but I mean, midway through, and they just kind of go, listen, that's too much for people to understand. That there's a good, bad, and middle.
They needed to have some way to say, well, if what if you were born before Jesus, or what if you were
so
if you're born a Hindu and you don't even know about Jesus, right?
So that's part of it, and then the other part of it is what happens if you unknowingly commit sin, right? You didn't mean to. It just happened. It was innocent. And there are many, many times where people would be like, well, they're burning in hell. Well, not necessarily. Maybe they just went to limbo for a time while they, cleared things up. It was never really clear to me either. My priests were always, and nuns for that matter, very, very adamant about, mostly it was going to be hell for me. And those around me. So, we didn't get a lot of, oh, you're such a good boy or you're such a good girl. It was always, you're going to hell. So,
in a handbasket.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Welcome to being Catholic.
Okay. So I guess then the next thing to talk about before we actually get into Old Scratch is the idea of angels.
Because he is one, technically.
Well,
what we're going to talk about. The manifestation we'll talk about. But I agree.
But I think we have to kind of know what an angel is.
What is an angel?
What is an angel? So I think it depends on what religion you are and at what point in the religion. So the word angel, the word itself, comes from Latin angelus, meaning messenger. And the Hebrew word for it is malach. And malach, not to be confused with Moloch, right? Malach.
Right, that's correct, right. Mm-hmm.
Malach means also messenger. And in the Jewish tradition, at least, angels are just physical manifestations of God's will, right? So they're kind of like a task. They come into being when God wants to do something, right? So, like when God parts the Red Sea, the angel is the thing that does it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Is the thing that makes it manifest. And then once that task is completed, the angel ceases to exist.
Okay.
Right. And so there are different aspects. Later on, they sort of developed, archangels. So like there was, Gabriel, which means, and all the angels' names have L. They end in L because L is God, is one of God's names. So, yeah. So anytime
except for one.
Metatron.
Yeah.
And the reason is because Metatron used to be a person. Metatron was Enoch.
Yeah, okay.
And Enoch, at the end of his life, God scooped him up and made him into... So Metatron, literally...
Okay,
Metatron,
all right. Yeah, okay.
The word means... It's Greek. And it gives you some idea of like when this character sort of comes on the scene in Judaism. It comes on, right around just before the Romans, because the Jews were busy Hellenizing themselves. And in fact,
Sure.
like Kabbalah is sort of a synthesis of like traditional Jewish magic and esoteric beliefs with Neoplatonism, right? So there was a lot of
sure.
Greek.
That's really
influence in
interesting.
that.
Sure. Okay.
And so Metatron literally means the instrument of change.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's because he is an instrument of change. So God makes him an instrument of change, right? And he changes into an angel.
Right. Well, okay, and so you know that Metatron is for Christians, the Metatron. It's actually the Metatron is the actual voice of God, and the voice of God actually is spoken through an angel, the Metatron, because if God were to actually try and speak to you, you would just explode.
Oh, interesting.
It's too powerful. His voice is well beyond you, puny human. Right. So he has to speak through the Metatron, and the Metatron is the voice. The Metatron is the one that tells Mary she's pregnant.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so the other thing that's interesting about angels that kind of dovetails into that is that angels can be human, right?
Okay,
so a prophet can be an angel. If a prophet is delivering a message of God, then they're technically an angel, right? And so like when you see stories in Genesis of like when Lot is holed up in his house in Sodom because the Sodomites want to have their way with him.
Right.
These men show up, these mysterious men show up, and they do all kinds of crazy things, right? Those men could have very well been human, right?
Right. Okay.
So the named angels, like Gabriel, literally, Gavriel means God is my strength. Gabi is strength. Raphael is God's healer. Yophiel is God's beauty. So you can see they're kind of mapping into the various Sephirot on the Tree of Life, right? You've got
Uriel,
you've got judgment. You've got healing. Chesed. You've got there's the light of God, Uriel.
Yeah, sure.
Samael is kind of the interesting one because we're going to talk about him.
Yep. Yeah, we are.
Right. He's God's venom. Samael means God's venom, and
so interesting.
And what's interesting about that too is that, because the Jews were this desert people, right? They came out of the desert after 40 years of wandering. This idea, like the word, like the word Samael, it literally kind of, the idea of venom and burning, like this is why the devil is like we always refer to kind of like burning and stuff.
Right. Yeah, sure.
It's because that's like venom burns. Like when you get bitten by a snake, venom burns, right? So they use that as the metaphor because it's something they understood being a desert people.
Sure, absolutely, and everyone would identify with quickly,
right? And so there's no in Judaism there's no kind of idea that are like good angels and bad angels. They're just angel, because an angel comes from it's a manifestation of God, so it just comes from God. So
sure,
right, God is God.
Right. Okay. Which is hilarious because in Christianity in general, there is this this idea that basically comes from Dante, right? Where although it's probably older than that, but it's basically that there is an army of angels. And they're on both sides, right? There are good angels, there are bad angels, and there are two armies. And these huge armies have amassed on either side of humanity and Earth. And this is what they're fighting for, is us.
Yeah.
And it's our souls that they want. They do a poor job of saying why, but, whatever. We can be a MacGuffin.
Well, the why? No. They you're right. They do a poor job of saying why, but the why is that because when the Jews were taken, and the Israelites, the Babylonian captivity happened, and understand that like when the Babylonian captivity happened, most people don't like. Everybody thinks like all the Jews went. They didn't. They only took the elite. They took the princes, they took the educated people, they took the priests and stuff like that, and they pulled them all over there, leaving the peasants still in Israel because someone had to work the farms, right? So so by removing them to the Babylon, these intellectuals started getting influenced by Babylonian teachings, and the Zoroastrian religion, which the Babylonians followed, was highly dualist. Right. So there was a good God, Ahura Mazda, and a bad God, and they were fighting, and they each had, and this is where you start to get the idea of angels being these supernatural creatures as opposed to just,
Right. And so one of my favorite books, by the way, is the Book of Enoch, an apocryphal book of the Bible that is bat dung crazy. Because it starts off with basically an angel coming down to heaven, copulating with a woman, and making a spawn called a Nephilim that is 900 feet tall and like superpower strength and all this stuff, and basically is an abomination to God, because an angel is a piece of God, and this piece of God that mates with a human being turns into this terrible thing. And that's basically God has to like they roam the earth and go nuts. And basically the beginning of the book talks about how like they walk around, they destroy a lot of stuff. They're 900 feet tall and it's no good. So God looks down and goes, enough of that, and just destroys the earth.
Right.
Just wipes them off. We're done with that. Let's start over again.
So here's what they didn't tell you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So
it's good stuff.
So the reason that God considers the Nephilim an abomination is because Nephilim, the angel part of them, angels don't have agency, right? Oh, they don't have free will.
Right. That's right.
So they have all the abilities of a human,
right,
with no free will. That's dangerous. Right? That's dangerous. They have no conscience. They have no soul. They have none of that stuff.
Right.
Because they come from, because angels don't, if all an angel is a manifestation of divine will, they don't need a soul. They don't need free will. They don't need choice. They just do what they're told. Right. So when you put that type of personality into a physical body, into the, right.
I just have to say this right now. Yeah. You know the worst part about this? Am I the only one right now that's thinking, is this a parable for artificial intelligence?
Yeah.
Oh, that's creepy as hell.
Yeah.
That's really creepy.
Yeah. No, it absolutely is. It absolutely is.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Sorry.
All right. So all right. So now we've got this kind of understanding of, and we'll talk about the war in heaven and all that stuff. I think when we talk about Lucifer, because that's sort of the central myth about Lucifer.
Yeah. Well, let's so all right. So wait. All right. So we're good on that stuff. So all right. So let's talk. So should we start Satan? Who is Satan?
Yeah.
And where does he come from?
Yeah. So Satan is a job description.
Okay.
Satan is not a personality. He's not a person. Right. He's not a being. He's a job description. He's a job title.
Right. Okay.
And we can see this because the word so the word Satan in Hebrew literally means like adversary or obstacle.
Right.
And so there's this Numbers 22.
Okay.
Is where the story of Balaam's donkey, right? So basically, there's this guy and he's beating his donkey to get moving, and donkey does what donkeys do, which is like, I've had enough, right? But what the
donkey's
guy
gonna donkey,
donkey's gonna donkey,
yeah.
But what happens is God sends a Satan to block his path. So it doesn't send Satan with a capital S. He says a Satan to block his path. So
All right.
it could be
interesting. All right.
It could
So
literally
interesting
be
question
a
here.
barrier.
Right.
It could literally
Yeah.
be any. You're right. It's not a
Or is
devil.
is it an angel? Is it a physical manifestation of his will?
Hard to say, maybe,
Okay.
but
Yeah. All right. I'm just.
but it's the
you know,
donkey. It's the donkey that's not moving.
Right.
He's not moving because he perceives
Fair.
this
Thing as a barrier, an obstruction.
So is that
All right,
physical?
fine.
I don't know. I don't know. But
right,
but
whatever.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's not.
But it's called a Satan.
It's called a Satan.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And
Yeah.
so so then and so like, for example, the serpent in the Garden of Eden is not
Mm-hmm.
the devil in Jewish thought, right? The serpent is the serpent.
Mm-hmm.
There's no obstacle there. He's not an obstacle. And the other thing
Okay.
that's interesting about sort of the Jewish conception of Satan is that Satan isn't in rebellion against God, right? He's not against God. He's against humanity. He's against, what's the son of man, right? B'nai
Right.
Adam,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
He is. So when you see him in Job, right? He's not rebelling against God. He's not working against God. He is like the prosecutor general of the heavenly court, right? He's the one who says, "Oh, these guys aren't worthy of your love," right? These guys are just, ugh, like they're.
Yeah. I think that by the way, that's an apropos analogy, and here's why. In the Catholic Church today, in ecclesiastical trials, right, where, so for example, for canonization, right, it goes and you basically the person who is up for sainthood literally has to go through a trial, and the prosecutor of the trial, the other side of, Mother Teresa did all these good things. The other side, what's it called? The devil's advocate.
The devil's advocate. Right.
Because he's there to argue against, doesn't matter what, always against. And that's where you get the phrase, the devil's advocate.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter what you say. It's always the opposite. It is the opposition.
Yeah. So I was just looking at the actual passage, Numbers 22:22.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it reads, "The angel of Yahweh
Uh-huh.
stood in the road as a Satan against him."
The angel of Yahweh.
So angel.
I was right.
No.
So I was right.
No.
Wait a minute.
Satan is not an angel. The
But it
angel
was
is acting
but-
as a Satan.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Right. I said it was an angel that was the Satan. Right?
Yeah.
Because it was a physical an angel is a physical manifestation of God's will, right? So therefore, yeah, that's cool.
The angel of the Lord appears as
that's
a
pretty
Satan. Now,
Yeah.
what's interesting is
Okay.
the language. The language is important, and the word order
It is important.
right?
Yeah, I agree.
So later on in the book of Job, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Basically, the way the book starts out is like the angels are all so the angels are all kind of hanging out in heaven, right, in the break room, right, playing cards, doing whatever they do, right,
Drinking coffee, lounging.
drinking coffee, waiting to be called.
Sure.
And they refer to them as the B'nai Ha-Elohim, right? The children of God.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Okay. All right.
And so basically one of them is selected as the Satan. So it's basically like God comes into the break room and says, I need a Satan. Hey, you do it.
Yeah,
You haven't been a
right.
Satan in a while. You go do it, right? So
I'm looking around the room, and Bob, you haven't done anything.
you're
in
the
a
new
century.
guy.
Get down there. Be the Satan for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
So it's an interesting
Yeah.
like, way of describing it from a
Yeah.
from a language perspective. So it
is.
You have an angel that can become a Satan, but then when he's done, he's not a Satan anymore. So
Gone. Yeah.
So in Judaism,
Or his purpose is over.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's a symbol of a role. Now here's where this gets really interesting. right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the 1950s, right?
Okay.
This guy, Anton Sandor LaVey, right, starts this thing called the Church of Satan.
Sure does.
Now,
Yeah.
Anton Sandor LaVey was born Howard Levy, right?
He was.
And
turns out.
He told a lot of lies about his, his biography is like mostly made up. A lot of mistrust.
May I say, duh?
Yeah. But there were two things that we do know about him. And one is that he had a colossal ego. And the second thing we knew about him was that he was a talented musician. And so he would play organ for a lot of different groups and in carnivals and stuff like that. And so that's kind of, he picked up that sort of showman-like, you know, I don't know, inclination, if you will. Yetzer HaShowman.
Right.
But
he didn't know what that meant.
But here's what's interesting. When he founded that church, right? That church, if you look at the doctrine of that church, right? They don't actually believe in Satan. They don't actually believe that Satan exists.
Right. And they're not worshiping evil and wanting to do evil.
Yeah. For them, the Church of Satan is about, not being beholden to any religious dogma or doctrine and doing what you want to do.
Correct. Right.
So it's a very sort of, it's sort of like Ayn Rand taken to the extreme. Right?
Absolutely. Which,
and so,
let me tell you, she already is.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So that's kind of an interesting sort of idea. And there's, and so what I thought was really interesting about this is that the guy who founds it comes out of a Jew. Now, granted, it was a secular. He was raised secular Jewish. He wasn't. They weren't observant, but came out of a Jewish background. Similarly, the Temple of Satan, which is in the news now because they're trying to put statues of Baphomet up in places where there are religious statues in public places as a way of testing. They're also they don't believe in the existence of Satan. It is simply it's a secular organization that is anti-religion. Right. And another, and that guy was Jewish. Like when like the guy who founded it was Jewish.
Sure.
And so neither of these guys, but now in the Church of Satan, here's what's kind of interesting. There was a guy named Michael Aquino who was who was raised Christian. Right. He didn't think that there was enough worship of Satan in the Church of Satan. And so he left
which is hilarious, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. He's just like, you guys aren't like, you guys are just like doing it as a joke. And I want to take this seriously. Right. And Michael Aquino, he's a really interesting character because he was an intelligence officer and a damn good one. He was on, he worked in Army intelligence. He retired as, I think, a lieutenant colonel. He was cleared above top secret. I mean, he was the real deal. He was like a, but at the same time, he had this thing where he would take his eyebrows. He had these like long bushy eyebrows and he'd like wax them so that they, they looked infernal.
Which is so great.
And if you just Google this guy, you will see.
He's hilarious.
Yeah. Just like, but like in his uniform, like he's wearing like an army uniform,
really?
Tons of medals.
That's the best.
Right. And that's like the infernal eyebrows. It's hilarious. But so he created this thing called the Temple of Set, which is an offshoot of the Church of Satan.
Yeah.
That does regard Satan as a spiritual being, right? They call him Set, which is the sort of the Egyptian equivalent of evil, the devil, the Egyptian devil.
Yep.
And so that now exists. And what's funny is that like when you put all the membership of all these groups together, it's like 4,000 people total. I mean, it's like these are tiny groups of people.
Yeah. I always thought that LaVey had a great sense of humor, by the way. A really, really great sense of humor.
Yeah, I thought he was a little ham-handed. Like,
That's why I think it's so funny. And I think that I think everything he did and said was almost a joke. And it was really ham-fisted, everything that he did. But I find it hilarious.
Yeah, I find him like he's like the Howard Stern of religion.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
right?
totally.
He was like a shock jock.
I think that's a terrific description of him. I think
Crowley was the same. Like I think Crowley.
Crowley was worse, and I think that like actually I take it back.
I don't think Crowley actually wrote some good stuff. I mean, he wrote some interesting, thoughtful.
But he was just as absolute bonkers crazy.
Yeah.
LaVey, I think, did it. He did it. He also had different aims, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not. Maybe not so much.
No, I think he did. I think his thing was to shock people.
Yeah.
And to make them feel like they were, doing something deliciously dirty.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to have an orgy in L.A. Oh, really?
Right. That's exactly it. Right. And I was just going to get there, which was also a really great way to bag chicks.
Yeah.
Or whatever. He didn't really care. And it was like, you're right. It's just, it's beyond Ayn Rand and it's into anarchy. Like I love just crazy anarchy. Let's do it all. Which I always thought was hilarious. It's so untenable. It's so untenable as a philosophy.
Yeah.
So it breaks immediately.
Yeah, totally.
Which is hilarious.
So I think that's kind of an interesting way of, like if you look at the people who are claiming to be Satanists, they don't actually worship Satan, right? Like they're subscribing to this sort of like Jewish idea of the idea of Hasatan, thus Satan, as a role and not as a being.
So in Christianity, Satan is a person. He's a person. He is the personification of evil. He's the direct opposite of God, and he's he shows up in the Gospels. He shows up first. First he shows up. He possesses pigs. It's one of Jesus's miracles, actually. He's walking through this village and he sees all these pigs going nuts. Farmers are freaking out and they're like, "Oh, my pigs, because it's their only thing that they have, being farmer peasants."
Really, they were pigs?
Yeah, they were pigs.
That's so weird because pigs aren't kosher. Like, where was he?
Keep listening. This is so that has to do with this, right? It's a cloven hooved thing. What is Satan always portrayed as? Is a cloven hoofed demon. And so Jesus and by the way, this is awful, and you should all go and read this yourself because this is literally top of Jason's brain from 8th grade. Jesus goes and he casts out the demon, the possession, and it is Satan who had possessed this pig, and the pig jumps off a cliff. At first it tells him, because it literally talks to him and says, "We are legion," and he just
does
says,
it do it like in a little squeaky babe voice? We are legion.
Probably.
That'll do, pig.
Actually not. It's in a really soothing Charlotte's Web voice.
Oh, okay.
We are legion. And then he casts he exorcises, right, the demon, and the pig jumps off a cliff and dies. And like the farmer's destitute now. Like, now I got nothing. Awesome. So great. You solved my problem by killing my pig. And it's actually in the Gospels are pretty uplifting, right? There's the stories are always, oh my God, we have this huge, overwhelming problem. Jesus comes in, miracle, day is saved. In this story, it's, oh my God, I've got a problem. Great, nice job, you made it worse. And it's a downer, right? And it's this moment where basically Satan is introduced as a person into Christianity. And it's a thing, it's an adversary. And then Satan shows up again. The next time he shows up is to tempt Jesus when he goes to the desert.
But he's not Satan.
For 40 days and 40 nights. Yeah, he is. He absolutely is
he's
Satan.
Legion. Doesn't he say, my name is Legion?
He does. He says, but he is Satan. It is Satan. And so, to me, that's really interesting because it's very blatant. It's right out there. It shows you right away. I'm Satan. I'm here to tempt you. I'm here to pull you away from God, right? And to give you what you want here on earth. And that's earth is not what you're going to get in heaven. So therefore, do you see all the duality there?
Yeah.
And so that's what Satan represents to Christians. And that's that pulling away from God is what he's doing in the Christian Gospels.
Okay, so just a short social media break. Abe Met says,
Yeah,
I
go
would
ahead.
love to
Yeah.
jump in on this. Abe, jump in.
Yeah.
If you've got something
Go.
to say.
Yeah, rock.
Go
please.
for it. Yeah. Love to get your perspective. So one of the things that's interesting, and I haven't really closely read the New Testament. I mean, I've read it, but not, not
Hey,
like
I'm
someone
Catholic.
who's,
Me neither.
but what would be interesting
Sorry.
to me would be
This is
to,
terrible.
like, I know that Satan appears in Revelation, but does he, by name,
Yeah.
but does he appear by name in the other Gospels? That's my question.
Yes.
If anybody who's watching the live stream, if you know,
I couldn't be more sure.
let me know.
I couldn't be more sure, but
Because what's striking me here is that there's a lot of conflation, right? Like there's a demon called
totally.
Legion, must be Satan. There's a
right.
There's a
So Legion is the thing that's in the pig. But here's the thing: is that I was always brought up. I was always brought up when that story would be told, or any of the other passages in the Bible that talked about Satan. So in the desert, the 40 days and 40 nights in the desert, that is always Satan. Always. And whether he says in the books themselves, I am Legion, then that's an echo of what the pig says, basically. But I don't think so. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not sitting around with
I
Bible
think
days.
for our next segment, one of the things I'm going to do, I have some homework to do, and that is to
quiz Jason
go
on the
see
Bible.
if I can figure this out. The other thing too is that does it say when Jesus goes into the desert that he was tempted, or does it just say he was tempted by Satan?
He's tempted by Satan. So there is the big temptation is that Satan appears to him while he's sitting in a pit. Jesus is sitting in a pit by himself, and Satan comes, puts his arm around his old pal Jesus and says, listen, you're suffering. This is terrible. Let me take you away. Let me give you. And he takes him and he transports him somehow to like this, the top of a mountain. And he shows him and he says, behold the fields below you. All of this can be yours. Take it. Be done with your suffering. This is all yours. And Jesus says no. And that's the temptation, right? And so that is basically him offering Jesus earthly wealth, and earthly power. And Jesus rejects that for the kingdom of God, right? So, hold on. First Peter. I'm gonna look this up.
And Abe, I'm following your comments. You're absolutely
please.
right.
Yeah, let's get some Abe. Well,
he said,
can I have some dialing music?
So what he says is that he was always explained that the word Satan meant obstacle and also adversary, and I think that's consistent with what we've been we've been saying. I would love to. I don't remember ever reading that story, and so about the. I mean, I know he went into the desert and was tempted. Oh, it's in John.
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, hold on a minute here. Modern Christianity. There we go.
And so the last appearance that I could find of Satan in Old Testament is in the book of Zechariah. So the prophet Zechariah has this vision where Satan is like the nation of Judah is on trial before God, and Satan is simply the prosecuting attorney.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
In this court, and that's
Okay.
the only mention.
That's it.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I found it. All right. So, and for kids that are reading along at home, this is from our finest news source, Wikipedia. But this plays out. This I think is right. The temptation of Christ features the devil and is described in all three synoptic gospels: Matthew, chapter 4, verses 1 to 11; Mark, chapter 1, verses 12 to 13; and Luke, chapter 4, 1 to 13. Although in Mark's gospel, he is called Satan. So there you go.
Okay.
So in all three synoptic gospels, Jesus' critics accuse him of gaining his power to cast out demons from Beelzulbub. Yes. The chief demon, often identified with Satan in mainstream Christendom. In response, Jesus says that a house divided against itself will fall. So logically speaking, why would the devil allow one to defeat the devil's works with his own power? Ooh, look at him. That's pretty good. It includes numerous instances of demonic possession. That's true. The New Testament is filled with that stuff. Right. Satan himself is said to have entered Judas Iscariot before Judas's betrayal. That's from Luke chapter 22, verse 3. Jesus encounters those who are possessed and casts out the evil spirits. A person may have one demon or multiple demons inhabiting their body. Jesus encounters a man filled with numerous demons in Mark chapter 5, verses 1 to 20. So there you go. So there's lots. And then it goes on and it talks about the Acts of the Apostles and the epistles. And there's some references there, and obviously tons in Revelation. And you're right, that and most of what we know about how we personify Satan is from Revelation, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's Satan, right?
Yeah.
That's one aspect of the devil, right?
Sure.
Two different kind of points of view on. Oh, and then if you look at Islamic, so Islamic kind of takes.
Oh yeah. That's a good one.
So shaitan, right, is the Arabic word for it, and shaitan is like a jinn, right, which is sort of like an angel, like a supernatural being. Mm-hmm. So I think they just sort of like they kind of nodded their head as they read the Old Testament. They went into the New Testament, went, ooh, I like that, and then it's sort of like when they
makes a lot of
were
sense.
Kind of
Mm-hmm.
I think
makes
probably when Muhammad was, because the and again, if any Muslims are listening to this, keep me honest, but Muhammad's ideas is that all of the prophets from the Old Testament through the New Testament are still prophets. It's just that Muhammad is the last prophet and the greatest prophet, right? And so, so all of those stories and things like that have their counterparts in Islam. Mm-hmm. And so Satan is from the get-go, like there's no ambiguity there. He's a character. He's a person. He's a jinn. He's a
absolutely
being.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Okay. So that's one aspect of
the devil.
The devil.
Or a personification of evil.
Yes. Yeah. And Abe points out that the word devil comes from diabolos, the Greek meaning a slanderer. Which it's
pretty good.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see. What we could do now is we could stop for a bit and pick it up next week.
Yes.
We could do another one. What do you want to do? What should we do?
No, let's stop, because I enjoy. I think this is a good a good compartment to stop at, and then next week we'll pick up with our next mystery guest.
Okay, so next week we're going to talk about Baphomet. Always a good time.
Yeah.
And kind of where that whole thing came from.
Yep.
And if we have time, we'll get kind of into Lucifer and kind of how this idea of the devil or Satan or whatever you want to call him. I mean, there's, it's funny because there's also stuff that I haven't really researched yet, but I will. Beelzulbub, right?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Right? Which means Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
Where did
so
that
great.
come
from? I know where it came from.
And do you?
Yeah. I believe so. I believe Beelzebub is the it actually goes back to, did you ever see the movie Dogma?
Yeah.
The Golgothan. And what is the Golgothan? As the prisoners shat themselves while they were dying on the crosses.
Yeah.
that evil in that miasma is what that is, and it attracted flies. The death itself attracted flies, and so flies have always been a symbol of that death. And so that's what he is he is death. He's befoulment.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll leave everybody with a thought, and then next week we'll pick it up with Baphomet and stuff like that. And that is that in ancient Israelite religion,
Mm-hmm.
And even in Jewish religion, the devil is the other guy's gods, right?
Yeah, right.
So when you look at like Moloch becomes a demon.
Uh-huh.
He's somebody else's god. Baal,
Yeah.
Baal Zebub, right? Means Lord.
Right.
Lord.
That's right.
Baal means Lord. The word Baal means just master.
Sure.
Right. So you can be a Baal. Like there was a very famous Jewish rabbi named the Baal Shem Tov, which means the master of the good name. Right. It just means the word master. Right. So, but when you kind of capitalize that, right, it's always the other guy's God. So what you find is that the
terrifically interesting.
Yeah,
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's always the other.
Catholicism does the exact same thing.
Yeah,
the exact same thing.
Yeah, so it's the other guy's God. So when you it's funny, but there's all of these insults in the Old Testament, where they talk about the children of like the Amalekites, right? Where that was a euphemism for homosexuality, right?
Right. Okay.
Because they're all a bunch of it was a way of insulting the enemies of the people by saying, oh yeah,
absolutely,
you're actually worshiping a demon, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So that's kind of when you look at the great pantheon of demonology, right? You have to when you find a demon, right? So look at the We Are Legion, right? Well, what is a legion?
Right.
Legion is a group of Roman soldiers.
That's correct.
Right? That they're very clearly what is this demon that's possessing the pigs? It's Rome. Right? And so
exactly.
Yeah. And so you have to kind of look at it like that. So the first thing when you come across the name of a demon, like, okay, whose God was this? Who left their God here? Right?
Yeah, totally. No. I mean, that is terrific. I never thought of that way. But all right. but 100% right. That's great. I can't wait for next week. This is so much fun. We could put some other demons in the hopper too.
Well, I also want to look into Mephistopheles,
Asmodeus.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah.
There's lots of good ones.
So
where they come from, I think, is really interesting.
Yeah. So we'll kind of look at that, and we'll keep trying to debunk the myths, and so stay tuned. We'll probably go. We went Monday today because we had some technical difficulties yesterday with
That was
internet,
me.
but we're back. Yep. And we'll go Sunday night at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll put an announcement on the Facebook page. Again, this is the point in the show where we have to thank the executive producers. We're having new pins made, and everybody who is currently an executive producer is going to get a whole new kit. Once the pins come in, they'll probably be in February-ish, I'm guessing. So if you haven't gotten your kit, sit tight. You will get it. We're just replenishing our supplies, and we're going to have new pins. And if you've been waiting patiently, we're going to not just give you the new pins, but we're going to give you the old pins as well. So it's going to be a pinorama. And then, but thank you for being an executive producer. If you are one, if you'd like to become an executive producer, please visit us at Patreon. It's patreon.com/X-Oriente, and make a pledge and help support deep and insightful programming on Freemasonry. And, there's something I wanted to mention, because we had talked about this earlier in the week. So one of the things that, we've been doing this now for a long time. I think we're in our 13th year. We should have a bar mitzvah.
Oh, that would be the best.
Wouldn't that be great? An X-Oriente mitzvah.
Our little show is a man.
We'll call it an X mitzvah. But we've been doing this a long time. And one of the important things about building an audience is about being regular. And it's really, really tough. That's the thing we've really struggled with, being every Sunday night, 7 p.m. without fail. And the reason is because we tend to do a lot of prep for the show. We have to do a lot of reading, a lot of research, a lot of thinking about it, a lot of talking about it. And what we kind of came to the conclusion is that it's too hard. And I'd rather wait a week or two and bring you guys something really meaty and really thought provoking, and something that is kind of worth the listen, than to just kind of be a mile wide and an inch deep, and be like, okay, let's talk about the chapter. The chapter's this 100%. And that, I don't want to do that. It doesn't help.
We're all about the quality over quantity.
Yeah. So
and I think it's important.
So what we're going to do is we'll make you this promise. We'll try to be as regular as possible.
It'll be like my grandma. She tried to be as regular as possible, but
Thanks for. He's here all week, Pete. Everybody, tip your waitress.
I'm just saying.
But yeah, we'll try to.
Will be 46 degrees, and the low will be 23.
Well, thank you, Siri.
Thank you, Siri.
Right.
So we'll try to be as regular as possible, but understand that, if there's 2 or 3 weeks between episodes, we're not just blowing it off. We're actually preparing for something that'll be worth it when we do come out. So with that, I will say good night, everybody. Thank you, everybody in the comments for being there, and please join us again next week.
We'll see you guys soon.
Fiat Vox, everybody.
Good night, everyone.